Hello, welcome to the Eagle's Wing podcast. I'm your host, Deuce Brandt, and today we have a special interview with a top-tier local realtor known for helping people not just find houses, but build lives here in the Valley. From first-time homebuyers to luxury listings, he brings a ton of experience and heart to what he does. Allow me to introduce Mike Vila Jr. from King Realty Group. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Deuce, nice to see you.
Hey, yeah, absolutely. And so I'm glad we got this opportunity to really sit down and talk. Recently I started a financial peace university for the Eagle's Wing Academy, and you joined you joined the Financial Peace University, and it's been an honor and a pleasure going through this process. We're in our last session, our last lesson. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with the Financial Peace University?
Well, it's been a great experience. It really has. You never know what you're going to get when you get into something new that you're venturing into, but it's been pleasant. It's been really good. You've been really good with us and meeting your family, and it's definitely been a positive experience for me, and I've enjoyed it. It's been very much informative, which is what I was looking for when I got involved. But, your personal touch and you making it Deuce, it's been good. I've enjoyed it.
All right. Well, I definitely appreciate that. And, it's so important that we get our finances on track and that we have something that not only the videos and the university, it stays the same. And at any time you can continue to go back to it. It's not like, hey, what was that thing that person said that one time? That's what I really like about it. Now, Mike, this is our first time really sitting down and having an opportunity to talk about your business and kind of your experience here in Las Vegas. And from my understanding, you've got a couple decades of experience in real estate and work here in Las Vegas. Can you tell me, are you from Las Vegas?
I am. Born and raised, native.
Just like myself, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Where'd you go to high school?
Silverado High School.
Silverado. I'm a Rancho man. This is right down the street from where we are.
Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Here at the East Las Vegas Library.
Yes, beautiful library it is.
Yeah.
This is my first time inside here.
All right. So just like myself, you've seen this city just blow up from almost nothing. I'd say you're not much older than myself, but a product of the 80s and kind of growing up here in Las Vegas.
Yeah, Rancho High School class of 97. You guys do the math.
Okay.
We have seen the growth. The community was different back then, growing rapidly, a lot of changes, but yeah, it's come a long way. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm a class of 2000, so we're like right there.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, very close.
Oh, yes.
And so I can remember growing up in Las Vegas to where there were parts of the city that were just desert. As far as the eye could see, you look out and it's nothing.
Oh, yeah, there still is parts like that, but not near as much as it used to be.
All right, very cool. So, Mike, I'm curious about your beginnings. What first drew you to real estate? And was there a defining moment or inspiration that brought you to this path, brought you to this profession?
Well, that's a great question. And the longer version starts like this. I have a sports background, played youth sports and grew up from there and played competitively at Rancho High School, and that parlayed me into a brief college career, and then some semi-pro baseball, that is. So I have a penchant for competitiveness, and in searching for what I wanted to be doing for people, and for income, it came down to sales. And when I got into sales, my first sales job was actually, the spring of your senior year. I went and sold for the Good Guys. I don't know if you remember that electronics store. I was selling home theater systems, home sound systems. That lasted for a couple months. And then I found the wireless business, cell phones. And back then, cell phones had just turned from analog to digital. Like, the whole thing flipped from 99 to 2000. And so when I got involved with selling cell phones, it started with Sprint PCS. And I actually wasn't an actual employee of that company. I was employed by a staffing agency. It was called Priority Staffing. And they would pay through Sprint, but I would report to a Sprint PCS supervisor, and we'd receive our sales initiatives, and then we'd go out and do our thing. So that job, that was called the SWAT job. Gosh, I can't remember what the acronym meant, because I'm remembering the other SWAT that I had back then, which was Summer Winter Action Tours. It was a college thing. I'm always thinking of the party, man. But in any case, Sprint swatters were sent to places like Blockbuster Video. Everybody remembers that. Radio Shacks, Best Buys when those were first open, and we would sell $100 to $150 handsets, phones, and we'd have to just pull, kind of like the kiosk people at the mall. We'd have to pull people off and sell them on Sprint phones and Sprint service, and so that was really fun. It was difficult. It was not easy, but it was fun. It was competitive. There were metrics. There were awards, for performance. And the height of it, I won a contest and got to take a ride in a NASCAR. I was a passenger in a NASCAR at the Speedway. And the other top swatter of that month, female, she, great salespeople, females, I tell you what. But we both got to race each other with NASCAR drivers. We were in the pad. They put a seat on where there's usually nobody, and got to do that. So that was great. And the next step from that was I could be making a lot more selling phones, and I'd heard Verizon Wireless was the place to be. So through my baseball career, I made a lot of great friends, and one in particular opened the door for me to go into Verizon Wireless. And I got hired on there in the fall of 2001, and that led me to selling phone. Well, we started in Walmart. We were selling phones in Walmart for $1. So it seemed like it was easier. Instead of $150 phones, it was like, hey, I'll sign you up for $1, but it's Walmart. So not the easiest, but that's where it was cutting my teeth sales-wise. And from there, I got transferred, into the Boca Park store in Northwest Vegas. And back then, that store was like the downtown Summerlin. Boca Park was like downtown Summerlin is today. And I got the privilege to help a lot of high-profile people, like high-profile lawyers, like Louis Palazzo. I don't know if you remember who that was. Louis Palazzo was Rick Tavish and Sandra Murphy's attorney in the Binion murder case.
Right.
Big time thing back in the turn of the century, right? And so people like him, even like Donald Mosley, the judge, Steve Wolfson was an attorney back then. He'd come in and buy phones. He's now the DA, I believe. Just lots of high-profile people like that would come into the store and buy phones. And then you'd have your realtors, your mortgage brokers who appear to be balling, and look at them and say, okay, well, I like what I'm doing now. It's it was great. It was great. It was part-time, and I made decent money as a part-timer. I could continue to play baseball, finish my degree at UNLV, but they were on another level. And so I was like, hey, that's like the next big tag thing that I want to do. I want to get into that. And eventually I did. And so that's what led me into my real estate career, just aspiring to kind of climb the sales ladder. And in 2005, I'll be darned. I received my license 20 years ago today, April 30th, 2005. Now I went to school in January, passed in January, and then had to wait for almost 3 months for my license, but it arrived 4/30, 2005. So here we are, 4/30/25.
You remember it?
And yes, I do. I'm a date guy. I'm weird like that. But
okay,
that is how I got started in this business and the why. And so I've been going at it ever since. It's been an interesting journey for sure.
Okay, yeah, no, congratulations. That is 20 years.
Well, thank you.
Amazing milestone. And so very cool.
21 if you count all the years. Well, it is 20 years, but 2025 is my 21st year.
Oh, okay.
This is the number 21, but
okay,
I've got 20 in the books.
Very, very
Gosh,
nice.
Dating myself. I did
No,
that though.
it's definitely good. And so as you were growing up, I know sales is one of those industries that no man is an island. And usually we learn and we grow and we read books, we go to seminars and we go to, trainings and all kinds of things. I wanted to know, do you have any mentors or role models when you were getting started And how did they influence your mindset?
I did. I had family friends that one in particular who I was very drawn to because of the things that he was accomplishing. And I wanted to be on that level. So it was like I was coming out of selling phones, and then it was like immediate. It was like immediate. I want to like break the bank. That was like my mindset. I was in my 20s. And so there was that person who did provide mentorship for me, but it was like off on a tangent. It was something else. It was like we were building an energy drink company in the mid to late 2000s. It had nothing to do with real estate, but what real estate ended up doing was financing my ventures into this other thing. You know, the company went public and the plan was to be rich, and that never happened, but I learned a lot along the way. So in that sense, I received a lot of lessons and mentorship in that way. Maybe not so much real estate specifically, but you know, I took a big swing. It was a big swing. I was at bat, took a big swing and whiffed, but I went for it. I stood in there, stood in the box. It's a baseball reference.
But that's what we have to do in our 20s. We have to take chances. We have to do something that we have never done to hopefully get a result that we've never had. And I believe that through mentorship and through good opportunity, we can learn skills that are transferable. And ultimately, it gets us to where we need to be in the future. And even if I've had several opportunities and business starts, business failures, things where partnerships ended really badly, network marketing companies,
Oh, yes.
just a whole slew of, learn yourself, work for others, just the experience of life. But it is through those experiences, if we choose to allow them to teach us, that we can become and we can step into where we need to be in our 40s now. Can you imagine?
I try not to. Now, how many network marketing companies have you been involved with?
So officially one. I was semi kind of in a second one, but I went a long time in the prepaid legal, and then it became Legal Shield.
I was involved with them.
But it was through that process and that mentoring and the ability to learn from real business people that gave me the confidence and the ability to run the successful web development business and consulting. And although I did not make a lot of money in Legal Shield and in network marketing, I learned so much and got a love for personal development and a love for great speakers, great education. I think of Jim Rohn. I think of just all of those experiences of learning and going, okay, you know what? I need to improve. I need to get better. And I like to say when I was 25 was when I first started in network marketing. I look back on that time and I think, man, I wasn't a quality human at that time. I didn't really like me. And so it's the man I became through that association and through that mentorship helped me become better. And so I'm internally grateful. But a lot of people will go, well, you didn't make much money and it cost you. And it goes, well, sometimes you get paid back in finances. Sometimes you get paid back in experience. Sometimes you get paid back in, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. But there's always a return when you try.
It's a fact.
So looking back, these last 21 years, what has surprised you most about the real estate industry when you first entered it? So we're talking 2005, 2006 timeframe. What were those things that transitioning from sales in cell phones, because I did that, but in a telemarketing. We sold cell phones on the phone. It was a terrible experience. I only lasted a couple months with that. But so I get where you're coming from, trying to sell a cell phone to somebody. If they needed one, they would already have one. And usually if you're calling them, you're calling them on the cell phone.
Right.
So they're like, why are you calling me trying to sell me the thing I'm on?
Oh,
so,
yeah. I remember trying to sell people out of them all the time, and it usually didn't work. 2-year contract.
Yeah.
I got my phone for $1.
Exactly.
I got limited minutes. There was all kinds of.
The 2000s were a wild time for cell phones and the advent of the smartphone and the iPhone. And that's a whole nother rabbit trail we could go on.
True.
But talking about real estate, what were some of those things that either you had misconceptions going in, maybe you thought it was going to be super easy, that, unlimited opportunity, that deals were just going to fall out of the sky and everyone was going to buy and everybody was going to sell. What were any of those things a part of your early career?
Well, yeah, and in the opposite way. The deals were falling from the sky in 2005. It was like shooting fish in a barrel. And I had rapid success out of the gates. A lot of referral business. Most of it was referral business, but it was a lot of business, and I was very successful up front. And my first lesson of multiple lessons of market changes occurred because we hit the wall. We hit the Great Recession and the subprime mortgage meltdown. And while we were in it, that movie depicts all that. And, the characters in that movie saw it coming, one of them and a couple of them maybe, but it was a blindside. And I'm just learning the business, and I'm thinking, how much higher can these prices go in that market? Thinking to myself, and boy, I got the answer real fast. It was not much higher before it just completely cratered, And that changed everything. So all my business went to virtually nothing. I didn't go thank goodness I didn't go any years without selling one home, but there was some really sparse years to where it was next to that number. But I had to do what I had to do. I got a part-time job during that time frame and stayed licensed and continued to work. So the misconception was that it was always going to be like that, because the goal of any business owner, especially a realtor or any business owner, is to automate your business to where you're taking orders. You're not hunting for deals, which is so common. Everyone's hunting for deals. Everyone's trying to get the next sale so they can feed themselves or their family, whatever it is. So the goal of the business is to become automated, to be an order taker, like I was saying. And so that it's still like not automatic. It's still a challenge. And for most realtors it is, but going through that period and learning more, and then I got with a gentleman who I was actually selling phones with. He ended up opening up his own brokerage. That's Ryan King and King Realty Group. He opened up his own brokerage, and I know he knew how to make money. And so he convinced me to come along. He was the fourth brokerage I've been with, and learned a lot when I got with Ryan, and it fortified my career. There's been a lot of good that's come out of that, and a lot more that I learned, a lot more skills, besides the experience of selling houses, a lot more that I've been able to offer, and just the way sales are done, which harkens me back to a difference in sales technique. When I was selling phones, especially for Verizon, I was very aggressive back then. I had a lot of young energy, young nervous energy kind of sometimes, and I was very aggressive. If I was twisting your arm basically. Like if you didn't buy from me with a phone, I was chasing you out the door. Why aren't you buying? Why aren't you buying? Why aren't you buying? And so when I got into real estate, that flipped. It's probably actually been sometimes a detriment that I'm not, because I leave it up to the clients. It's like, listen, it's not my house, it's your house, and it's up to you. You need to make this decision. I'm not going to, and you'd be surprised. There's a lot of realtors out there that'll go and they'll tell you, oh, this is great for you. This house is perfect for you. You should buy this house or whatever. It's like, I've heard that story so many times from different, clients of mine that had other realtors that said, that was very uncomfortable. I don't want to, they were urging me to go down this road. That's not what I wanted. So big difference. You sit down, you qualify the customer, the client, the prospective client, you listen to them, just listen and figure out what they're looking for and what they want and manage those expectations. Say, hey, listen, I know exactly what you want. And here you go. Here's what's out there for you. A lot of times they're proactive. They'll show you what they want, and then you go and find it and lock it down for them. Sometimes the expectations are not in line with the market. They're thinking of something, they're wanting something that's not existent out there, and you have to educate them on that, which is challenging sometimes. But in a roundabout way, I hope that kind of answered what you were looking for.
It does, and just kind of as a follow up to the housing crisis, it affected everyone. So during this time in the early to mid 2000s, I was rocking and rolling in the website development business, and it was like literally you could go outside, throw a rock, and wherever it landed, there'd be a website customer. And you'd be people falling out of the sky, and referrals, and literally you call someone, hey, you need a website? Oh yeah, just bring the paperwork. And it was like, wow, that was easy. And starting in 2008, it was like a domino falling, first with the bubble bursting, and then it was the end of 2011 that my web development business completely, the floor had completely fallen off, but it was a slow decline, but it started in 2008.
Yes.
But previous to that, it was like, this is the golden time. Everything is great. There's, free money. Everyone's purchasing home and extra real estate and rental properties, and literally no money down, no job. It was like anybody, anytime.
The same year for me too, 2011 is when it bottomed out for me.
It was a gradual decline. I can remember it and just going, it's getting harder and it's getting harder. And this was right around the time, I had gotten married. My first son was, my wife was pregnant with our son, the first one. And it was like, what am I going to do? And eventually it completely eroded, and I lost faith and went to work at a casino for a decade because I thought that was the secure. Now, I'm not going to get into me, but talking about that idea of setbacks and tough challenges, how did you bounce back? So
it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. That was a hard time. I had good times during those times, and I was about 30 years old, in late 20s, early 30s, but it was tough, harkening back to those moments, to those years. But I did what I had to do, and I made it through. It was so tough. It was like moving back in with my mom. That happened. I had to do that for a time, which was just after being so successful in the beginning of the business. Getting into the industry and, I bought my own house at 24 years old. I was very proud of that. Me and my best friend, we went 50-50, and then I bought him out. And that was great success. We both had homes, and then we both didn't have homes. And then me, again, bottoming out in 11, and I'm back with my mom. It's like, thank God, Mom, thank you. But it's like, what is going on? What bizarro world is this? I can't believe this is happening. But I, buckled my boots and strapped on my belt and got myself the heck out of it, Was not easy though. Wasn't easy, just had to stay positive and try to know that it was going to be better, later. And just, faith, you got to have faith too, but there was a lot I learned in those days too. A lot of lessons, good lessons. You think about it and about everything you've done, and it's kind of a lot. It doesn't seem like much. It's like, oh, it was just that. But you start talking about it and you realize, it's a lot. I've been through a lot of good information, for people not to, hopefully not fall in the same kind of pitfalls.
Yeah, I agree with you. The idea of, hope and faith of, it's going to be better. Sometimes it's all you have. And this is something that, especially when you see success and it is so easy and it's like, wow, right time, and then the floor falling out.
Right.
So when a lot of people think of Las Vegas, they think of the Las Vegas Strip. They think of the hotels and casinos. And
many people, that's all they think about.
But that's the misconception of people that are outside of here. But
how many times have you heard, do you live in a hotel?
A lot. Or you must spend all your time on the Strip. No, I avoid it like the plague. It is just,
20 miles any direction, you're going to be in a rural area, people.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't realize in the greater Las Vegas area, we are 2+ million people, residents. Approaching 3 in the North Las Vegas, and Henderson. There's a lot of land, and there's a lot of homes, there's a lot of people, and there's a lot more than that tiny little strip. But how would you describe the real estate market to someone who isn't from here, and what makes it different from other cities?
Well, it's always going to be different in the sense of the gaming and the exclusivity being in a valley. We provide just our habitat is just different. It's not like any other place. Most of this country is woods. It's sticks, or flat land. That's the majority of what this country looks like if you've traveled across the country, north, south, east, west. We're in a desert climate, and that's different. You don't have many desert areas around the nation. You find it in the west, Mexico, parts of Colorado, Arizona, California. You go a little north, like Idaho, it starts to flatten out. Montana, you got it's a little bit different. A lot of mountains up there, beautiful pines and creeks. But Vegas is different. It's always been different, and just the convenience of being here. That's why I don't know about you, but anytime I go anywhere else, I get hungry at 9:00. I can go grab a bite. I just love that creature comfort. Anywhere else, you're probably not going to be. You might have to go to a convenience store to get a munchie or something. So,
but yeah, I lived in a very rural city outside of Tallahassee, Florida, little country living where literally 9 p.m. the city shuts down. You cannot go to a store, and just the way that things are done, like you pump your gas, then you go and pay. And I was always like how, and you would ask people, why do they make you pump and then pay? Well, in Vegas, you pay first,
right,
then you pump. And they go, well, how do you know how much gas you need? You go inside, you give them a $20 bill, and you say, pump whatever. And whatever you get for that 20, that's what you get.
Or you get change.
Yeah, it's such a weird, it was such a weird thing for me, kind of having a perspective time outside of Las Vegas. But I do agree with you. The idea that everything is, essentially open. We used to be a true 24-hour town. It's kind of scaled back a little bit, but
I think it's because of the growth. You have a lot of other areas other than the heart of the town, which always stays open. But you go.
Oh yeah, on the Strip, you could definitely get whatever you want.
Because the town didn't go too much further out from the Strip long time ago. Now it just sprawls, and so you do have those shut down areas. But if you ever want it, I see the glow. It's funny. One of my assistants years ago had given me an analogy that I love to use, and she goes, I love this place, and excuse me, I'm like jacked into the electricity because this Las Vegas is the brightest place on the planet according to NASA. Artificially, obviously, but that's a fact. And so she goes, I'm like a moth to a flame or something. Like I'm jacked into the electricity. I feel good with that. I need that. And I kind of feel the same way. Like I like that the glow is down there. I don't need to be in it a lot, but I know that it's there, and that gives me comfort, I guess.
I get that. Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of, so somebody comes to you and they're looking to buy a home in Vegas. What is one thing they might be surprised by that they should keep in mind?
Oh gosh, surprised by buying in Vegas. Nothing comes to mind off the top. What would they be surprised of? It just depends on if they've been here or not. And I guess that'd be a question to ask them. Hey, is anything surprising you? About this experience? Because it is. For us, we're used to it. Everything we just mentioned, we're used to all that. So it's second nature. It's like, back of our hand stuff. But it could be, obviously, it would be a complete different experience for somebody coming from somewhere else or that had never been here, doesn't have an experience with this place. So I think it'd be more of a case-by-case thing. It's like, hey, what stands out for you here? So I guess that'd be a great question for a potential buyer.
Okay.
Because I can't think of something right off the top. Maybe it is just that, like, hey, you can, do whatever you like within reason. I think a misconception is people who visit here think they can do whatever they want. It's like the Hangover movie or something. It's definitely not like that. You get out of pocket, you're going to, find out quick what that's all about. You can't steal cop cars, and, it's not an episode of Reno 911 for sure.
Right, for sure. So you've built a reputation in a city that's known for its fast pace and high stakes. What is a moment in your career that you went above and beyond for a client? And how did that experience shape the way that you run your business today?
Well, this is a people business. And I know I've fallen short at times just being caught up in the pace of transactions, volume transactions, and sometimes the service level falls off, and that makes me feel bad. Like, people might think that that's no skin off our back or something like that. Me personally, if I miss something or do something that doesn't satisfy your experience, I take it personal, and do whatever I can to make it up, or at least get that feedback so I can be better for the next person. If you're not going to deal with me anymore, just so I can be better. Everyone deserves a good service. They deserve it's a big purchase, no matter what level you're at, whether you're first timer, upgrading, downsizing, investing, whatever it is. And so that's very important. And I would say that's kind of the biggest pillar for me in my business is I'm going to give you personal attention, like the movie Jerry Maguire. Have you ever seen that movie?
Yes. Show me the money.
Right. But here's the thing. He got booted because he wanted to provide more personal care. Right. You wanted smaller, Bob Sugar said. So he got fired. But in the end, he won because he's showing genuine care for people. He saw Rod Tidwell's goals, and together they made it. And then that opened the doors for Jerry to have more business. But that's how I run my business. I want to know what your goal is. If you're serious, because there's some people that aren't really serious, you got to weed them out. Okay, you're not that serious. You come back when you are. No problem. No skin off my back. It's all good. But the people who are really wanting to do something, they have that need, then we sit down and we see the end first. I've set out the goal. What are you looking to accomplish? Okay, this is what it is. Here's the roadmap. Here's how we're going to get there. And then, with their input and what they're looking for and my expertise and how to get there, we become a team for a little while and we make it happen. We either complete a purchase or we complete a sale, whether they're selling a house or buying a house. And that's how I run my business. That's the pillar of my business, really.
So you literally just answered the question, but I want to ask you specifically. There's a lot of realtors, there's a lot of people that have their license that buy and sell homes, and there is a lot of people that Las Vegas attracts. Everything from retirees, young professionals, investors, international buyers. How do you tailor what you do? How is that different from anyone else? And basically my question is, why should we come to you, Mike, when it comes to buying or selling a home?
That's a great question. Two-part question. And there's a lot of agents out there, a lot. And usually what it comes down to is whether the people like you. Now, I'm open to working with anyone. My business over the last decade has been tailored toward my client database. So I market to my client database, my past clients, my repeat clients, and that's worked very well. And they've referred more people to what I call the family, who are, just the people that I've sold homes to. Like any family, some, you don't hear from them at all, or I make an attempt to reach out, but there's a great core of them who, hear from me a lot and they send me new business, and that's been the cornerstone. But again, if there's anybody new, they're definitely not going to be turned away, and I will help them as much as I can. But yeah, I have to stand out. It's going to be me. I have to sell my own self. And anybody who knows me knows I'm a quirky personality at times, and my marketing strategies are funny. I aim to make people laugh. I have a YouTube channel with old commercials because I do some targeting Facebook ads and IG, and those commercials are aimed at humor. Some of them are pretty good, a couple of them. But yeah, that's I'm kind of a goofy person naturally, and I try to bring that out and just not care, kind of self-deprecating, I guess. It's where, I'm kind of making a fool of myself, but it's all in fun. Like, I can make fun of myself with everyone else. We can all tease me and make fun of me. Like, yeah, I had to learn that skill though, because I was kind of sensitive in there too, naturally, but I've absolutely learned learn to enjoy to join in on the fun on myself.
So I am glad that you brought this up because I was migrating towards that. The real estate sensei.
Oh yes.
This I don't know if it's a character. I don't know if it's part of the skit, but I love the idea of creating something that's entertaining. That's not simply this is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath home with 1,500 square feet. There's a backyard with, it's very dull. I mean, a lot of the stuff that we see that
I don't like that either. But you know what? Some people like that, and that's okay. That's totally cool. That they like that. It's practical. It's like, hey, let me see what I'm looking for. Helps me understand what to buy. It's analytical, and it's like the DISC assessment, if you remember that. Some people just, their brain works that way, and that's awesome. But I can't be. I'm not an analytical person. I'm getting better at being analytical in that sense, but I'm a creative to the core. So I'm gonna be entertaining. If I have to market, I'm going to be entertaining.
So when I was in the network marketing company, they always talked about there's 4 different types of people. There's 4 sea animals, right? Mm-hmm. So you've got sharks, dolphins, whales, and sea urchins. And so basically a shark is a money-motivated person. A shark is always moving forward. It never sleeps. It's eating. It's hunting. It's moving forward all the time. A sea urchin is the kind of person that studies, got to have all the information, consumes it all, got to have 100% of the facts, all the data. Then you've got the whale. The whale is a person that just loves people, loves, ultra caring, opens up their home, just a loving, inclusive kind of person. And then you've got the dolphin. The dolphin just likes to have fun. Dolphins swimming around, jumping up out of the water, doing backflips, even playing with their food to the point where it's a fun thing. So it sounds to me like you're more of a dolphin.
I might be a dolphin with shark's teeth.
Okay. So it's one of those things that I believe that if you can produce content that is entertaining, that promotes a point, you can have a lot more success than a person, because you can lose attention very, very quickly with that dry kind of style. And I want to encourage that in you. And I'd love to see more of the comedy, of the creative content, because that is something that AI and these tools that I'm going to talk about in a minute about, where we're kind of going in the future. It doesn't do a very good job creatively. Now, if you're a creative person and you prompt it creatively, it might produce something creatively, but most people aren't. Most people are that dry, analytical, just the facts. And so I just want to say that's a great feature, a great benefit, being creative. It's a huge it's a huge plus, I have to say.
Well, going back to the real estate sensei, I don't know, do you watch any streaming shows?
Some, yes.
Have you watched Cobra Kai?
I have seen parts of it. Yeah.
Okay, I'm a big Rocky guy, and I very much enjoyed Karate Kid when we were kids. So when that came out, I was, well, actually, you know what? Because I don't dive into those shows head first. Like, someone has to kind of bring me to it and tell me about it. So my brother was telling me about Cobra Kai. He goes, "Oh, it's right up your alley. You got to watch it. I'm like, eh. So I did, and I loved it. And the first episode, it was there. They had an Iron Eagle reference. Iron Eagle is a jet movie the same year that the original Top Gun came out in 1986. And there's references to Iron Eagle in the first Cobra Kai. And that, yeah, they had me at hello for another Jerry Maguire reference. But in any case, I modeled, I was spoofing Johnny Lawrence in Cobra Kai. And that was my inspiration for the real estate sensei. And so I did it. There's 2 real estate sensei commercials, but the first one I kind of nailed and in one take. And it was a lot of fun, and it's humorous, and it plays off of Johnny Lawrence's character, or William Zabka, the character of Johnny Lawrence. So that was a lot of fun. And people took to it, surprisingly enough. They it's like, I know I'm corny. I know it's what I'm doing, but they enjoyed it. I get a lot of good feedback off it. So it was cool.
It reminds me a lot of the old television commercials that are, over-the-top character, car salesman, or, I remember there was
Good man, Fred.
Carpeteria
Oh, that's a good one.
was it was a business, and they had just the wildest. It was a genie. And
Yes.
just there was a car Tobin dealership where every salesman dressed up like a character.
Chop it.
Yes.
These are vintage Las Vegas commercials.
Those
people.
Yes, for us that grew up here, it's like, oh, we get that. You don't see a lot of it anymore.
No.
You don't, and so that's why I think it's refreshing, and it's a wonderful
Someone
thing.
needs to bring it back. I'm a nostalgist as well. So
Me as well.
Okay.
That's why I think that it's, there's too many people that are trying to be too serious, and you got to get the attention. This next generation that's coming up, one, they believe that they can't have home ownership, that there's like this belief that the Gen Z and the Gen Alpha, they'll never own homes, and it's so bad, and the older generations are. I think that's total BS.
They're being fed bad information,
Yeah.
and they're believing it. But first full circle moment here, the Ramsey program teaches how to achieve home ownership the right way by making the right decisions with your money,
Exactly.
which is a class I am still in. I think it's a lifelong thing, but just when you think you got it licked, you learn more.
And that's something that I want to bring to every student who comes to the Eagles Win Academy. The idea is, yes, we learn how to make money. You got to learn how to generate income of some kind through a skill, a trade, some kind of output. But then once you have money,
Right.
how you deal with that. And I'm going to tell you, in my early 20s and 30s, I've made a lot of money, and I've had a lot of money slip through my hands like it was sand.
Yep.
And so there's a difference between earning a lot and being wise. And so now in my 40s, I'm looking at it and I'm going, okay, the goal is not necessarily how much can I amount, but how much can I keep? How much can I use towards my future? And that's something that I look at and I think, what if somebody was to get a hold of me at 18, at 20, at 25 and go, look, get on this path, set, we've got the rails, set your train on this path and just follow it. The idea is the answers have already been discovered. The people have already gone through the school of hard knocks. And I just want to I not only say that it's possible for home ownership, you make good decisions and you don't go into debt in your early, 18 to 25 time frame, which is the worst possible time for you to make any decisions that affect the rest of your life. It's kind of like, hey, should I cut off my right arm? Everyone's doing it. Well, you shouldn't be making these choices when you're young and impressionable, and because it affects you well into the future. And that's kind of like, maybe we're not amputating a physical arm, but if you get $200,000 in student loans, you're not going to have the opportunity that a person who goes and gets a trade, starts working, goes and builds at it, would have. Having no debt versus having a ton of debt. That's why I'm so for the trades, is that it's not only a valuable skill that you can get, and sales is it's a trade, it's a skill, and not everyone can do it, but if you can, the most money you can make is in sales by far. But moving on, I want to get into this idea of the future. We talked about the past, we talked about the 80s and the 90s and the 2000s, but we are in 2025. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that is just, it's bombarding us right now is AI, these tools. The future is not only here, but it is like, I remember the Coors Light commercial, the silver bullet train going through the wall. Mm-hmm. It's like the silver bullet train going through the wall. And I want to talk about AI being a game changer, but how real estate is still a personal business, especially in a relationship building city like Las Vegas. How do you see yourself balancing the high-tech tools with the human touch that makes your service stand out?
Well, I tell you what, everyone's, for whatever reason, lots of people, like, their mission, their aim is to cut the realtor out. Just cut out the agent. Now, you can achieve a sale without real estate agents, but that's a very savvy, finite group of people. And there's other people who want to make it like a Best Buy transaction. Now, you can buy a car online. I did it. Now, I have unique experience with car sales, because that's the other thing I didn't mention was I have a wholesale car dealership, or excuse me, wholesale dealer's license, a salesperson's license through the DMV. And so I can buy wholesale. And I was off and on in that business for a while, but now I just do it for friends, family, and then also personal use because I have a Turo fleet. Turo is the car rental app. And so with the, I lost my train of thought.
Yeah, I've been using AI tools
in
the future.
So that's right. Thank you for keeping me on track. It's very easy to excuse me, very easy to buy a car online and just make it automated, darn near. It was pretty close. And it was like, wow. I did deal with people, but it wasn't like the traditional, I go and test drive the car. I saw the car online and I bought it. And the first time I drove it was driving it home from Oregon. And so people want to make that type of experience for the real estate business, for real estate, for buying a house, selling a house. They want to make it like a transaction where you just, a humanless transaction almost. You really can't do, well, you can, but there's always going to be a need for personal attention, personal connection when it comes to buying and selling real estate. There's just going to be people who are going to require that, a lot of people. And so however many folks want to try and cut out the realtor or make it a process without realtors, so on and so forth, I feel that strongly there's always going to be a need for that personal touch at some point. You're going to need a helping hand to hold through the process. And honestly, if you took away every realtor, if every realtor stopped working tomorrow, decided to just stop working in mortgage broker, our economy would crash. It would collapse. So you need realtors, you need lenders, you need that workforce to do what they do to keep it moving. So,
and you're definitely not going to have somebody from India, Singapore, somewhere in Asia outsourcing and taking these jobs. So it's something you must have somebody local.
Well, right. In any market, you need your professionals who know that market. There's many of them. I can't tell you what's going on per se in the San Diego market. I don't live there, but I can tell you what's up with this market. And there's people like that everywhere in every market. You're going to need that, no matter what your goals are.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mike, you've shared so much about your journey, your approach to real estate, and how you're embracing the future of this dynamic Vegas market. If you could step back and speak from the heart of why you do this, helping people find their place in this incredible city, what's the one thing you hope every client takes away from working with you? And how do you want to shape the future of real estate here in Vegas?
Okay, let's table that question because I want to rewind back to AI.
Okay,
because AI is very important. I love the Matrix movies, especially the first one. I love the Terminator movies. And a lot of people are concerned that, you look at Elon's robots, they're very agile now. And what is this consciousness going to lead to? Is it going to lead to a war between man and machine? Could be. Who knows? And it's something to be keeping your eye on. But whether you hate it or you love it, you got to learn it. You got to learn it, because if you don't, or at least be familiar with it, know what it does. And so for the future, like you said, this thing's here and it's moving. And so if you're not aware, it might not be a good thing. Unless you're living in a secluded area, in the woods somewhere or in the mountains, and it just doesn't affect you anyway, and you're self-sufficient, working with your own crops, so on and so forth, not dependent on anything, off the grid, which is, a little piece of peace in itself, right? But if, we're in the mix like we are, and a lot of people are, then getting introduced and learning what this thing does is important. And so I actually took a plunge after speaking with one of my friends and business partners, Jared Penn at Prosperity Mortgage, a little plug there for him. And we had a conversation about this very thing, AI. And he had received some information from other agents in Oregon about how this thing was working. And so we were just talking about, oh, this is kind of scary, but we're going to have to jump in and see what this thing is all about. And so I did it. I asked AI 25 questions I said, ask me 25 questions so I can become more visible with my real estate business on social media and every other platform. And it started jamming. And it was like I was typing away with a person. It was very smart, and it was very comfortable. I felt it was a good experience. I felt like I was speaking with somebody and they cared. Now, there were parts in it toward the end, especially that it started becoming robotic, where you could see that it was artificial intelligence. It wasn't deducing a couple things. But what it did was it spit out an entire business plan for me, laid it all out. I told it everything. I said, hey, this is what I want to accomplish. This is my end game. And it gave me an entire deal. Now, I didn't sign in with it, so I ended up copying and pasting the whole conversation and favoriting the bookmarking, the web page. But Deuce, it was a heck of an experience. And there's more things that I'm going to ask it, because there's other projects I have going, and I'm going to ask it these things, and I'm very curious and eager to see what it spits out. Now, I know there's more to it than that. It could probably tell you how to live your life and stuff like that. So yeah, that's another rabbit trail, but I wanted to shed the light on the future and that particular product and what we could look forward to. I can see an AI model, or whatever you want to call it, software being loaded up into one of Elon's robots, and then you have essentially a person. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where we go with that for sure. But I encourage, even if you hate it, even if you're anti, robot or AI, whatever it is, know your enemy. Get to know your enemy, right? You got to know your enemy. So yeah, it's something to get familiar with for sure.
So there's a couple things that you talked about, and I kind of jumped the shark kind of with my final question.
Yes,
so,
we'll go back to that. You got to reread that to me.
I will reread that, but that's kind of a plug. I'm going to be interviewing an AI prodigy, a young guy who's starting a business and using these AI tools for sales and marketing and all the wonderful things. Tony B will be a future guest on the Eagles Wing podcast, but we were talking about it, and it's like you said, when we've got these robots that do the same functions and that they have this intelligence, one of two things is going to happen. One, it's going to be paradise on earth, and we're not going to have any hard labor and those mundane tasks that, think about construction, a guy hanging drywall. Well, if a machine could just hang the drywall and work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you pay for it one time, and well, a human cannot compete with that, kind of like a self-driving semi-truck.
So that's the WALL-E scenario. Have you seen the movie WALL-E?
Yes. But that's the idea of like, if we can get to a point where the robot and the machine does everything for us, that's labor intensive and kind of boring and we don't want to do.
Right.
So that opens us up for what I mean by utopia, in that we can have our creative pursuit and we can seek what is beautiful and kind and loving and really focus on the creative, focus on the soul. Or on the other end, the dystopian future where it is like Terminator, where it is, maybe it's not the robots rebelling and taking over the world, but maybe they take over our functions. And like the Matrix, we get into a pod, and in the pod we're this is something that I don't like in the future that Elon wants with, the Neuralink, connect your brain to the internet.
Yeah,
I don't like
chip.
I don't like that idea. I don't like the idea of in the Matrix. It's this prong that goes in the back of your spine, the back of your neck, and we live in these pods, and we have these people today that are like, yeah, we've got bug farms, and we're gonna feed people bugs, and you're gonna live in a pod, and you're gonna love it because you're gonna be in a fantasy land, whatever you want. in a tiny little, room, basically a coffin, and you're going to be force fed bugs, protein juice or whatever they call it. And in that, it's, I look at that and I go, we choose what our future is. For me, I would never get in the pod. But I think about the next generation.
You will be taking a red pill, not a blue pill.
But there's going to be kids that absolutely would, that they're like, join the Matrix, I'm in.
Right.
100%. Join instead of playing Fortnite, being in Fortnite, being in the movie, being a part of it. That's this idea of kind of the future of what we could be in. I'm of the belief that there's going to be those that are willingly going to go into the fantasy, and then there's those that are going to want reality and going to want, what this life has to offer. But it's a matter of choice. And that's something that when you talked about the AI, it's an amazing tool and it can do some great things for you. But there is a benefit and a blessing in work, in labor, in accomplishing something. And I don't mean go outside in the Las Vegas desert and dig a ditch, dig a hole, because it's, if you've ever lived here, it's impossible. It's super hard ground, and it's, I'm not talking about something that is completely worthless, but if you're building something and you're building towards something, it has value for us as humans, and we need that.
Yes, that's a great point. That's exactly what I thought about when you were describing the utopia, is we have a natural, you got to know about human nature, and we have a natural wiring for work. We're wired to work. We're wired to produce. That brings us joy. Obviously, time leverage is great, and you want that to do what's important in life. But you get to a point where, Prince said at one time, the great late singer Prince, he said, too much freedom leads to the soul's decay. And he was right, because if you're not working, if you're not building something, if you're not putting, purpose, building up towards something that you believe in and working toward it, however that is, physical or mental, you're going to kind of rot away a little bit. And it's important to work, And there will always be people who are worker bees who are going to want to work and are wired that way. And so... And
there's always the opposite too.
Right.
Don't want to work.
True.
That would, willfully... I call it going into the pod, but it's frustrating because, I like the idea. I like leisure. I like entertainment, but there's something different from accomplishing and doing. And I'm a big fan of what AI can do, but it's like a tool like anything else. It's kind of like a chainsaw.
Right.
Cutting down a tree with an axe, it's a long, hard thing. Chainsaw, it's easy. But that
Much
chainsaw
easier.
Can also be used for destructive. You could use it for a lot of terrible things.
Great analogy.
If you take it out of its purpose, and that's what I like to think of AI.
Yes.
So with that, I'm gonna ask you again. We're already at an hour in this
good.
interview, and it's been a great interview so far.
More content, the better, right?
Absolutely. And so, all right. So I want you to step back and speak to the heart of why you do this, helping people find their place in this incredible city. What is the one thing you hope every client takes away from working with you? And how do you want to shape the future of real estate here in Vegas?
My why? Well, it's fun when people get their keys. That's a fun part. In specifics, then the paycheck's fun too. But no, my why, my fulfillment in this business is the fact that I got to help somebody. I really made a difference. They, again, a house purchase or sale is a big deal. It's not a small thing. Moving is it might be the most stressful thing to do in life. It used to be top 5. I think it's top 3 now. And so for me to provide a seamless transaction, a seamless experience with that as much as possible, because everything's different. Every transaction is different. Every scenario is different. Everybody's story is different. So if people can remember their transaction and say, hey, Mike was pretty swell, even if it was a kind of a bumpy road to the goal, or if it was smooth, because they're not always smooth. There's usually challenges and sometimes big challenges that we have to get through. But if people can remember me and say, hey, that was cool. I dig doing that with Mike. He did a good job for me. If they smile when they think of me, and if you're asking them about that, then I've done my job, and I have a sense of fulfillment with that. So that's what I hope for. And like on my website, villalv.com or highlinevillas.com, you can see in my bio that if you are a prospective client of mine and you decide to become a client, welcome to the family. That's what I think of my database. I think of them as family. So I think that's a good juxtaposition there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it reminds me of this idea of, if I'm invited back, I've done a good job. And if you'll take my call and you don't avoid me and you don't think that was one of the reasons I got out of the network marketing, was when people stopped taking my call and, people would say, hey, you just hound me on that thing and I just don't want to see you. If I see you, I'm going to avoid you. I'm not going to take your call. I went, that's not who I want to be.
Right.
That was my exit, because I want to be that person to where when you see me call you, go, oh, Deuce is calling me, something good.
Right. It's like, not like, oh.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
I understand how that feels.
Yeah. Mike, it is such a powerful note to end on. I want to thank you for spending time reminding us of what makes real estate in Las Vegas so special and why you're the go-to for so many. So many, that you treat them like family, that you're like family. So everybody, you've been listening to the incredible Mike Villa Jr., a realtor who's not just selling homes, but building dreams in the heart of Vegas. If you're thinking about making a move to this vibrant city, you know who to call. Check out the show notes for how to connect with Mike and learn more about his work. Visit him online at villalv.com. And thank you for tuning in. Keep chasing your dreams, whether it's a new home or a bold new chapter. Until next time, this is Deuce Brandt with the Eagles Wing Podcast, praying for your successful and godly wisdom.